Have you ever said something with good intentions, and suddenly the room goes quiet? Maybe your daughter stiffens or your grandson avoids eye contact. You didn't mean any harm, but somehow the mood changed. As we get older, we gather wisdom, memories, and life experience. But here's the funny part sometimes. The more we know, the trickier it gets to say the right thing. You've lived through so much. You've raised kids, maybe helped raise grandkids, worked hard, seen the world change. And now, in these golden years, all you want is peace, connection, harmony, maybe even a little quiet, right? But peace in the family doesn't always come easy, especially when we unknowingly say things that push others away. Today, we're going to talk about 5 things you should never say to your family after 70, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because a few simple changes in words can make all the difference in your relationships. It's not about walking on eggshells or being overly cautious. It's about learning to communicate in ways that bring your loved ones closer, not push them away. Because the truth is, the older we get, the more we crave meaningful connections. And whether it's your son-in-law, your adult children, or your teenage granddaughter, you still want your voice to be heard and your heart to be understood. So, let's dive in. This is going to be practical, honest, and hopefully even a little bit freeing. Number 1, when I was your age. Ah, yes, the timeless opener. It rolls off the tongue before we even realize it. When I was your age, we worked with our hands. When I was your age, we didn't talk back to our parents. When I was your age, we didn't need therapy, we just dealt with it. Sound familiar? This phrase isn't meant to hurt anyone. In fact, it often comes from a place of pride in what you've been through, what you've accomplished, and what you've survived. And rightly so. You've seen the world change in ways younger folks can't even imagine. Your journey is rich with lessons. But here's where things get tricky. That phrase, "when I was your age," can unintentionally shut down conversation rather than open it. It creates a comparison and not always a fair one. Why? Because the world has changed dramatically. Yes, you had your own battles, many of them harder than anything your children or grandchildren will ever face. But their struggles are real too. They're just different. Today's young people are navigating a world of non-stop information, social media pressure, financial instability, climate concerns, and constant comparisons. They're dealing with challenges that didn't exist decades ago, just like you once dealt with things your parents didn't fully understand. So when you say, "when I was your age," it can sound like, "your problems aren't valid. I had it harder than you. Why can't you be more like me?" And that's rarely what you mean, but it might be what they hear. Even if your intent is to connect or offer perspective, the phrasing can put distance between you and your loved ones. It can make them feel judged, not understood. Here's a better approach. Instead of leading with comparison, lead with curiosity or empathy. Try saying, "I remember how confusing things felt at that age. It sounds like you're carrying a lot. I may not get it all, but I'm listening. I don't know what that's like in today's world, but I'm proud of you for handling it." These small shifts in language keep the conversation warm. They show that you're not trying to compete with their pain, you're trying to connect with their experience. And trust me, that connection, it goes a long way. Let's say your granddaughter tells you she's anxious about graduating college because she doesn't know what comes next. You might be tempted to say, "when I was your age, we just took whatever job we could get and made it work." But that kind of response, while practical in your time, might feel dismissive now. Try this instead. "I remember the pressure of figuring out what's next. It's a tough spot to be in. I'm here if you ever want to talk or just bounce around some ideas." See the difference? One version lectures, the other invites. And when you invite someone into conversation without judgment, without competition, you build trust. You make it safe for them to open up, and you show them that wisdom doesn't always have to come wrapped in advice. It can come wrapped in understanding. So, next time that old phrase tries to slip out, pause. Think about what your loved one really needs in that moment. Often, it's not a story about the past. It's reassurance that they're not alone in the present. And that's a gift only you can give. Number 2, you never call me anymore. This one stings on both ends, doesn't it? You say it because you miss them, because you love them, because once upon a time they were always around sitting at your dinner table, dropping by on weekends, asking for advice about everything under the sun. And now, the silence feels like a void. But here's the tricky part. When you say, you never call me anymore, what you mean is, I miss you. But what they often hear is, you're failing me. And the second people feel like they're being scolded or guilt-tripped, their natural instinct is to retreat, to defend, to justify, or to avoid the discomfort altogether. You might hear a rushed, I've just been busy, or I meant to call, but the deeper impact is this. The phone call becomes associated with pressure, not peace. And that's not what you want. Because your real message isn't about blame, it's about belonging. It's about feeling remembered, being part of their life, even from afar. You're not asking for hours on the phone, you just want to be included, even in small ways. So, how can you get that message across more clearly without pushing them away? Try turning guilt into invitation. Instead of saying, you never call me anymore, say, it always makes me smile to hear your voice. I know you're busy, but when you call, it really makes my day. Even just a quick hello means the world to me. These gentle phrases keep the door open. They don't carry the weight of accusation, they carry warmth. And warmth is magnetic. People are drawn to it. Here's another subtle shift that works wonders. Instead of waiting for their call, sometimes a small message from you sent with joy, not pressure, can rekindle that connection. A light-hearted text, a voice note, even an old-fashioned card with a simple line like, just thinking of you and sending love. These tiny gestures are like breadcrumbs. They guide people back to you, not out of guilt, but out of affection. And if you're not comfortable with texting or technology, just let them know. I'd love to hear from you whenever you have a minute, no pressure. Just knowing you're thinking of me is enough. It's not about demanding time, it's about inviting connection. Because let's be honest, when your loved ones do call or visit, you don't want that moment clouded by tension or reminders of what they haven't done. You want laughter, updates, affection. You want presence. And that happens more naturally when people feel welcomed, not warned. So the next time you feel that ache, that quiet sadness of not hearing from someone, pause before you speak. Breathe, and choose a phrase that builds a bridge, not a wall, because love doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be kind. Number 3, I won't be around much longer. This phrase carries a deep emotional weight. It often comes from a place of vulnerability, even fear. You may feel the passage of time more keenly now. You might be facing health issues or simply reflecting on how life has changed. And sometimes, saying this out loud feels like a way to remind your loved ones, don't forget me, make this time count. But here's what we need to understand. Saying, I won't be around much longer, doesn't always land the way we intend. To your family, especially your children or grandchildren, it can feel like a sudden emotional ambush. They might be in the middle of catching up, laughing, or enjoying a moment with you. And then, boom! This line hits like a cold wave. They don't know how to respond. They may nod awkwardly, go quiet, or change the subject. Not because they don't care, but because they feel powerless. They love you, and the thought of losing you is too painful to unpack in that moment. Over time, if that phrase is repeated often, it may begin to feel less like an expression of honesty and more like a quiet guilt trip. Almost like you're saying, you should spend more time with me because time's running out. Even if that's not your intention, it can leave them feeling pressured, not present. So what's a better way to express what's underneath that phrase? Because at its core, I won't be around much longer, is really about a desire for meaningful connection. It's about wanting your moments with family to matter. A more uplifting and powerful alternative could be, every moment we get together means so much to me. I cherish these visits more than you know. I'm doing my best to enjoy every day I'm given, and being with you is the highlight. These versions still honor the reality that time is precious, but they do so in a way that builds connection rather than casting a shadow over it. You're reminding your loved ones that you value them without making them feel guilty or afraid. And here's the beautiful part. When you focus on making the present joyful, the memories become stronger, more meaningful. Those moments linger in their minds not as moments filled with dread, but as warm snapshots of love and laughter. Let's look at a real-world example. A grandmother used to mention her declining health every time her grandchildren visited. Not in detail, but just enough to shift the mood. Eventually, her teenage grandson started visiting less often. Not because he didn't care, but because the visits made him feel helpless and sad. One day, she changed her approach. Instead of saying, "I might not be here next year," she started saying, "I'm so glad I got to see you this week. You light up my whole day." That simple shift made all the difference. Her grandson began visiting more often, bringing stories, smiles, and even helping her around the house. Their bond deepened, not because she asked for more time, but because she made the time they'd feel good. So remember this: your presence, your stories, your laughter, they're not fading. They're being written into the hearts of your family every day. Speak life into the time you have now, not fear into the future. Number 4, you should. At first glance, it seems like such a harmless phrase. You should. It rolls off the tongue without a second thought. You should get more sleep. You should call your brother more often. You should move closer to home. And yes, most of the time, it's said with love. It's your way of looking out for your family, wanting what's best for them. After all, you've seen a lot. You've made mistakes, and you've learned the hard way. Sharing that wisdom is part of what elders have always done. But here's the important truth. How we share wisdom matters just as much as what we're trying to say. The phrase, "you should," can easily come across as criticism, even if that's not your intent. It puts the other person on the defensive. It suggests, "I know better than you," and that can be hard to hear, especially for adult children who are trying to find their own way. It's even harder when advice is repeated often or shared when it wasn't asked for. Over time, it can feel like you're not trusting them to live their own lives, make their own choices, and yes, even make their own mistakes. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't speak up when something truly matters, but there's a big difference between giving guidance and giving orders. Let's break it down even further. Saying "you should" shuts the door. It ends a conversation. Asking thoughtful questions opens the door. It invites reflection and connection. Here's a shift in language that can work wonders. Instead of saying, "You should leave that relationship, it's toxic," try saying, "I've noticed you don't seem yourself lately. How are you really feeling about things? Do you feel supported in that relationship?" This small change does 3 powerful things. 1, it shows you're paying attention. 2, it respects their ability to think for themselves. 3, it creates space for them to choose whether to open up, because here's the truth. People are much more likely to accept advice when they feel seen, heard, and respected. Let's take another example. Instead of saying, "You should eat better, that stuff's not good for you," try this: "I used to eat that way too until I realized how much better I felt when I cut back on sugar. If you're ever curious, I'd be happy to share what helped me." See the difference? You're not placing judgment, you're sharing your experience. You're offering a door, not pushing them through it. And when you do this consistently, something beautiful happens. Your wisdom becomes something they seek out, not something they avoid. One elderly man I spoke with told me he used to give his adult sons constant advice about their careers. "You should ask for a raise. You should be further along by now." And he noticed they started calling less. One day, he asked one of them, "Why don't we talk as much anymore?" And his son gently said, "Dad, I love you, but I always feel like I'm disappointing you." That hit hard, so he made a change. He started listening more and speaking less. When he had a thought, he'd ask, "Would it help if I shared what worked for me in a similar situation?" 9 times out of 10, the answer was yes. And the best part? His sons started calling again, not just out of duty, but because they wanted to. So remember this: Offering wisdom isn't about directing, it's about connecting. It's about choosing words that build bridges, not walls. The advice you've earned through a lifetime of experience is gold, but when it's wrapped in kindness and curiosity instead of commands, it shines even brighter. Number 5, you've changed. This one might not seem like a big deal at first. In fact, you may mean it as an observation, just noticing something different in a loved one. But how we say this phrase and when can make a world of difference in how it's received. Because let's face it, life is all about change. You've changed. The world has changed. And so have the people you love. But when someone hears you've changed, especially from a parent, grandparent, or elder, it can stir up an unexpected emotional reaction. They might not hear it as neutral or even caring. They might hear it as, "You're not who I want you to be anymore." Or worse, "I liked you better before." And that stings, especially when it comes from someone whose approval has always mattered, the person who raised them, or someone they looked up to as a child. Now, here's the real heart of it. When we point out change with sadness or skepticism, even unintentionally, we risk sending a message that love is conditional, that it's tied to how familiar or agreeable someone seems to us. But if we welcome change with curiosity, that message shifts entirely. Let's break this down with an example. Say your adult daughter has become more assertive. She sets firmer boundaries. She's no longer always available when you call. It might feel tempting to say, "You've changed, you never used to be this distant." But what if that change is actually her growing into a healthier, more balanced version of herself? What if she's learning to take care of her own needs, something you might even respect if you saw it from another angle? So, instead of letting the change feel like a threat to the relationship, try seeing it as a doorway to deeper understanding. Try saying, "I've noticed some things are different lately. I'd love to understand what's been going on in your world." That sends a different message. It says, "I see you. I care about you. I want to know you as you are now." The same goes for grandkids. Maybe they start dressing in styles you don't understand, or they develop beliefs or interests that are unfamiliar to you. It's natural to feel a little out of touch at times, but instead of retreating or saying, "You've changed," as if it's a bad thing, try stepping forward with gentle interest. Ask, "What made you get into that? What do you enjoy about it?" You're not giving up your values. You're simply showing that your love is bigger than preferences or habits. You're saying, "I accept the new version of you, even if I'm still getting to know them." Here's a story from real life. One woman in her 70s told me how hard it was when her grandson came out as gay. It was unexpected for her, and at first she struggled. Her first instinct was to say, "You've changed. This isn't who you were." But instead, she paused. She asked him to tell her his story, how he came to understand himself, what he was feeling, what he hoped for in the future. And you know what? Their relationship grew stronger because he saw she was willing to meet him in the present, not hold him to the past. That's powerful. Here's the deeper truth. Love is not about holding people in place. It's about growing with them. And when you're over 70, you've already proven you can grow. You've adapted again and again through jobs, moves, losses, wins, and technology that changed faster than most of us could keep up with. So use that strength now. Use it to say, "I might not always understand the change, but I'm here for it. I'm here for you." Because ultimately, when you love someone, you don't just love who they were, you love who they're becoming. That's how you keep your family close. That's how you keep the peace, by letting people evolve and loving them through it. Let's take a breath for a moment. We've covered some emotional ground today, haven't we? These phrases, "I know what's best," "You never call," "I won't be around much longer," "You should," and "You've changed." They often come from a place of love, worry, or even sadness. And that's okay, because you're not just a parent or grandparent. You're a human being who's lived through decades of joy, hardship, growth, and learning. Of course you want to share your wisdom. Of course you want to stay connected with your family. But sometimes love needs translation. Sometimes it's not what we say, but how we say it that makes all the difference. Your words carry weight. not just because of your age, but because of the life you've lived. And when your words are gentle, curious, and full of respect, they land softer. They build bridges instead of walls. So instead of, "You never call," try, "Hearing from you makes my day." Instead of, "You should," ask, "Would you like my thoughts on that?" And instead of mourning who someone was, lean in and learn who they are now. This doesn't mean silencing your voice. It means fine-tuning it to create more peace, more understanding, and more connection, especially in your golden years. Because here's the truth: you still matter, you still have power, and you still have the ability to shape your family not through control, but through love. One kind word, one thoughtful conversation, one heartfelt gesture, that's all it takes to bring people closer. And in a world that's often noisy and rushed, your calm presence and wise words are more valuable than ever. So keep showing up, keep choosing warmth over worry, and remember, you're not alone in this journey. So many others are learning and growing right alongside you. If today's message resonated with you, if you felt a little lighter, a little more hopeful, or maybe just seen, then you're in the right place. We're building a beautiful community here, a place where seniors feel valued, heard, and supported as they navigate this incredible chapter of life. So, if you haven't already, click that like button, subscribe, and maybe share this video with a friend or family member who could use a little encouragement too. Drop a comment below and let us know. Which of these phrases have you caught yourself saying? Or maybe, what new words are you choosing from now on? We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, your voice still matters, your presence still counts, and your best days, they might still be ahead. Take care, stay kind, and keep shining.